This is a story all about how basketball got turned and twisted upside down, and how different styles and rule changes affected statistics in the NBA. We'll tell you why James Harden might be the best offensive player ever, and why Dennis Rodman definitely was the best rebounder ever, despite averaging 10 rebounds per game less than Wilt and Bill Russell. So stay tuned. Why Dennis Rodman is the best rebounder ever, and not Wilt Chamberlain. When Dennis Rodman landed on the cover of Sports Illustrated in 1996, with the bold title, The Best Rebounder Ever, Wilt Chamberlain furiously called his good friend Bill Russell and asked him about this BS proclamation. "This is nonsense. What he averages, we used to get in one quarter," Wilt lamented, while his anger entertained Russell. And if we look at the stats superficially, Wilt was 100% correct to be mad at Sports Illustrated. Chamberlain averaged an NBA record 27.2 rebounds per game in 1961, and he has 22.9 boards per game in a career, while Russell is a close second with 22.5. The next person on the list is Bob Pettit with 16.2, and compared to them, Dennis Rodman averaged a pedestrian 13.2 boards per contest. The NBA record for rebounds in one game is 55. Set by Wilt in 1960, while Rodman's career high was 34 boards in 1988. Out of all 40-plus rebounding games in NBA history, Wilt and Russell are responsible for 22 out of 24 of them. So how can we possibly claim that Dennis Rodman is a better rebounder and agree with Sports Illustrated when Wilt averaged almost double the amount of rebounds per game than the Worm? The answer lies in the context and the difference in eras when these gentlemen played ball. In the 1960s, teams played with the fastest pace and number of shots attempted. In 2020, in the so-called pace and space era, teams attempted 88.8 shots per game, while in 1960 and 1961, when Wilt and Bill Russell ruled the basketball world, the average shot attempts per game was 108, 20 attempts more than today. Naturally, more shot attempts equals more rebounding opportunities, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. Back in the 60s, the average field goal percentage across the NBA was around 41%, which is significantly less than 47% in 1992, when Rodman averaged league-leading 18.7 boards per game. Again, fewer shots going in the basket means more opportunities for a rebound. Furthermore, and this is a big one, Wilt and Bill Russell averaged well over 40 minutes per game, while Rodman and players today are rarely averaging over 36 minutes. Wilt's career average was 45.8 minutes per game, while Rodman averaged just 31.6, which meant 14 more minutes per game for Wilt to grab rebounds. To try to level things out, we'll take a look at the number of rebounds per 100 possessions, or better yet, at the rebounding percentage, which uses a formula based on the number of available rebounds to the time the player was on the floor. Per 100 possessions, prime Rodman averaged more than 24 rebounds, while Wilt's per 100 possessions was 21 rebounds. In the year, he averaged 27 boards, but also with the frenetic pace of 133. The highest career rebound percentage by a player is 23.4, by Dennis Rodman. The highest rebound percentage for one season is 29.7, also by Rodman, which he achieved during the 1994-95 season. He also owns 7 of the top 10 rebound percentage seasons, 4 of the top 5 in the history of the NBA. The NBA started to count rebounding percentages in 1970, so we only have numbers for the last 3 of Wilt's seasons, in all of which he led the league in rebounds per game. However, the rebounding percentage he averaged in those 3 years was 19.4, which is well below Rodman's career average of 23.4. Aside from raw numbers, there was also the fact that Wilt was a 7'1" center and by far the most athletic player in the league at that time, and that Rodman was a 6'7" forward, which makes Rodman's rebounding even more impressive. The secret to Rodman's stellar rebounding lies in perfect positioning, a tireless motor, and desire to get every rebound possible. He spent hours in the gym learning how the ball bounces off the rim, and he even studied opponents' shots and how many rotations the ball makes when they shoot. It took him 4 or 5 years in the league to learn that, but once he did, he knew how to angle and position himself to out-rebound players much taller than him. The same logic applies to Wilt's scoring. In the year Wilt averaged 50 points, he also averaged a mind-boggling 48.5 minutes per game, which are both records that will never be broken. Wilt exceeded the official 48-minute per game mark due to overtime in some games, and he played all but 8 minutes of the 1962 season. If we adjust those numbers per 36 minutes, we get a more reasonable 37 points per game, which is still a lot, but not astronomical. Most NBA scoring champions average over 30 points in a season, with Jordan, Kobe, and Harden eclipsing the 35 points per game threshold. However, while points per 36 minutes do level the playing field, it still doesn't account pace to the equation. Wilt's Philadelphia Warriors played with a pace of 122 in 1962, which would translate to 40.5 points per 100 possessions for Chamberlain. If we compare those numbers to premier scorers we just mentioned, Jordan, Kobe, and Harden, we can easily see all of those gentlemen top Wilt's numbers if we look at scoring by possession. Kobe averaged 45.6 points per 100 possessions in 2005-06. Jordan had 46.4 in 1987, while Harden reached a phenomenal 48.2 points per 100 possessions last season with the Rockets, when he averaged 36 points per game. Because the 2019 Rockets played with the pace of 97.9, Harden's points per 100 possessions increased, while Wilt's decreased. Don't get us wrong, 50 points per game is still impressive no matter how you look at it, but it can't be the best scoring season ever due to the sheer number of possessions Wilt played to get there. Is James Harden the best offensive player ever? Now that we touched on some historic scoring outputs, we can't just stop at points per 100, because that doesn't paint the whole picture either. There have been 2 rule changes that impacted NBA basketball the most. The first one was the implementation of the shot clock in 1954, and the second one was the three-point line, which was introduced in 1979. So don't think we are slandering Wilt Chamberlain here, because Wilt was a center that played in the era without the three-pointer, a rule that significantly boosts scoring numbers of today's stars like Harden, Durant, or Curry. If we just look at the scoring totals, or scoring per 100 possessions, that tells us nothing about efficiency or the way a player has scored those points. Field goal percentage was the measuring stick for efficiency for a long time, since there was no three-pointer. Then came the effective field goal percentage, which accounts for threes, but not free throws. And that brings us to the most accurate statistic, true shooting percentage. True shooting percentage accounts for all shots, and was intended to convert all shot types to two-pointers, thus giving a fair assessment of players' efficiency. True shooting percentage is important to differentiate volume scoring from precise shooting, and we'll use Allen Iverson and Steve Nash as examples for each. While Iverson did have 31 points per game in his 2001 MVP season, he did it on over 25 shots per game, and his true shooting percentage was 52%, slightly below league average. 4 years later, Nash won his first MVP, averaging just 15.5 points per game, but he did it with a true shooting percentage of 61%, which almost led the league, along with 11 assists per game. Nash's 7 seconds or less Suns were one of the first teams that embraced the pace and space era we are experiencing today. When we look at the way Iverson gobbled up many possessions, hoisting inefficient long twos, it's almost arguable that Nash was a superior scorer in his prime due to his precise shooting, if only Nash had shot more. What Nash didn't do, Steph Curry sure did, and achieved the unthinkable feat for a point guard. Curry became the first uber-efficient volume scorer and changed basketball forever with his phenomenal shooting from deep. Not only did he and the Warriors prove that jump shooting teams are not like pretty girls, and that they indeed can win an NBA championship, they transformed the whole NBA into a jump shooting league. Everybody finally realized the truth that has been staring us all in the face, and that 3 is more than 2. The Houston Rockets, who have one of the strongest analytical departments in the NBA, took this to the extreme. The Rockets fell in love with the 3 and almost forbade the long 2, with James Harden's step-back threes serving as a poster for analytics in basketball. Because he shoots over 10 threes per game and is elite in getting to the free throw line, Harden is one of the most effective scorers in the history of basketball, with 61% true shooting for his career. And because the Beard scores more points than anybody since Michael Jordan, it's fair to say he's probably the most potent offensive weapon in basketball history. Only Kevin Durant and Steph Curry can match Harden's efficiency in the modern era, but neither matches his volume or his assist numbers. Then again, neither also has the usage rate Harden does, but that's a story for another day. Conclusion: how to really look at statistics. Analytics can be a powerful tool in basketball, which even the most old-school basketball heads are now forced to accept. We do hope that we deepened your knowledge on how to look at stats, and that regular points, rebounds, assist totals are not nearly enough if you want to put basketball output into context, and especially if you're trying to compare different eras with different rules. However, as the old saying goes, statistics are like a bikini. They do show a lot, but leave the most important things covered. Basketball can't be looked at just through the numbers, and you actually need to watch the games to know the whole story, as many of the things that happen on the court and affect the score are not measured by statistics, no matter how hard we try to measure everything.